Hello, friends. I am Nada, a medical student. Well, I am just here to share with you the story of my father and my friend. Rahaf is my sister who was not born to my mother because she was my best friend. I am my only child. They gave birth to me after 10 years of waiting. They care about me a lot and do not refuse me any request, no matter what it is. I was the spoiled one who did not wish for anything, except that her wishes came true at lightning speed. While Rahaf was suffering from poverty on the one hand and her parents' constant problems on the other hand, one day the driver took me to the university, and there I found Rahaf. I told her that I was confused between buying my mother gold earrings or a necklace for her birthday. I asked her opinion, but she remained absent-minded. I asked her, "What's wrong, Rahaf?" At first, she insisted on keeping it a secret and said in a low voice, "Both are occasions." But she quickly burst into tears. I asked her in surprise, "Rahaf, what's wrong, my dear?" She began to speak, choking with emotion. "My father divorced my mother. I hugged her and told her, 'It's okay, I'm here.'" Rahaf added, "He wiped our dignity clean. He humiliated us in front of the neighbors. Everyone was watching without moving a finger. My father grabbed my mother's hair and dragged her outside and asked me to do what was right with her before he broke my bones. I went out and a torrent of insults rained down on my ears. What did I do to deserve this treatment? It's okay, my dear. It will pass and God will compensate you with something better." I tried to calm her down and then asked her where her mother was now. She told me that she went to her uncle's house to find a solution to her problem. Days passed, and I saw my friend like a wilted flower. She was tired. She couldn't focus on her studies because her father had divorced her mother, and all attempts to reconcile them had failed. Pressures came one after the other. Her uncle's wife started treating her and her mother like servants, preventing Rahaf from leaving the house so that she could do the housework. I started to feel sorry for Rahaf a lot, so I invited her to my house and spend the night with her. My father didn't object. On the contrary, he was very sympathetic to her. One day, while we were sitting in my room, Rahaf said, "I envy you. You have a spacious and beautiful house, companies and money, a driver who takes you to university, and two loving countries that respect each other and love you more than anything else. They are truly a blessing that I thank God for, and I am sorry for what happened to you. It must have been very difficult, but you will graduate and get a job. You will compensate your mother for what she suffered, and, God willing, you will be relieved." Rahaf looked, and her eyes widened and became frightening, and she said the proverb says that he who has a date in his hand is not like he who has a burning coal in his hand, but a burning coal. And I said yes, of course, but I did not understand what she meant. Suddenly, my father came in and asked me if I needed anything, so I thanked him, but quickly Rahaf got up from her seat and said, "Mr. Kamal, I need some things and I do not have enough money. Can you lend me some?" I was surprised by what she did. She calls him Uncle Kamal, not Mr. Kamal. Why didn't she ask me, her friend? Why did she ask my father? My father's voice interrupted my thoughts as he said, "What are you saying? You are my daughter like a dewdrop." He took out a bundle of banknotes from his pocket. He counted some of the papers and gave them to her. Rahaf put her hand on his shoulder and said, "Thank you, Mr. Kamal. Consider it a debt." She returned to her place and sat down. While my father froze in place, looking at her in surprise, then said, "Consider it a gift." Then he walked out of the room. After this incident, I noticed that she had changed her treatment of my father and had become closer to him. I saw him give her his phone number so that she could call him when she needed him. My mother noticed the change in my father's treatment of her and how he spent long hours on the phone. If she asked, he would answer that it was work. Although I no longer spoke much to Rahaf, I would see her from afar holding her phone and talking with interest as if she was planning a special project. This was true many times a day. Rahaf visited me. At the dinner table, he leaned over and said, "Today I want to inform you of the latest developments." Rahaf looked at him with a smile, while my mother looked with surprise. I put the fork down from my hand and looked at him, curiosity almost killing me. Any new developments, Father? Father, I propose to Rahaf according to the Sunnah of Allah and His Messenger. My mother shouted, "What? I don't want to remember what happened because I felt like I was falling into a deep, bottomless spiral. My father married Rahaf. My mother asked for a divorce and left the house with her. My father bought us a small apartment. Being away from my father was a torment I tasted every day. But I had no choice. I focused on my studies. I excelled. And I became a doctor in the government hospital. Rahaf stopped studying and brought her mother to live with her. They were enjoying themselves and wasting my father's money on shopping. But he did not mind. He did not even dream of marrying a young girl like Rahaf. But as soon as I remembered my friend's betrayal of me, I felt stabbed with a dagger in my chest, and how my father did not look for me since we betrayed his home. It is strange how people's conditions change. One day, while I was in the hospital, I went to the analysis department to get my analysis for one of my patients. While I was searching for him, my father's name came across to me. I made sure that I was not delirious. I lifted the paper and made sure of the name written at the top. It was him. It was my father. Sugar, cholesterol. And his thoughts were interrupted by his voice saying, "Qatar al-Nada." I raised my head and looked at him. He was looking at me. He extended his hands to hug me, but I pulled back lightly and moved away from him. "What is wrong with you, Qatar al-Nada? I am your father, the father who loves you. My father is dead. He is dead forever." I saw his tears streaming as if he were a little child. My heart broke and I wanted to hug him, but pride prevented me. He made me swear to listen to what he was going to say, and I was afraid that I exposed myself in front of the medical staff, so I invited him to my office. He was talking non-stop, and all I could think about was his condition now. Time passed quickly and my father left me. I arrived at work sluggishly until the evening, then I headed home. My phone rang. Who is calling? Oh my God, it's been a long time since her number appeared on my phone. What does Rahaf want at this late hour of the night? I was going to hang up, but I decided to answer at the last minute. Hello, Qatar al-Nada. Your father is dead, what are you saying? This is what happened. I said it might concern you. That's why I told you. What are you babbling about, and how did he die? His car brakes failed, so the car swerved and fell into the sea. They found the car, but they didn't find the body, and they announced his death. Rahaf. Oh my God, I came immediately. I went to Rahaf's house, or rather our previous house. There she told me that my father died, and the Civil Protection Services confirmed it. My mother and I started crying. Rahaf came up to me and said, "Cry over your luck," and laughed out loud. I told her, "Don't you have any shame? The dead is not only my father, but also your husband." She smiled and said, "I no longer care about his property. His property is mine. I am his daughter, and I have a right to his property. No, never, and I will contact the lawyer immediately to confirm what I am saying." This morning he put everything he owned in my name. At least wait until the body is found. What do I care about his body? He is dead, and the dead are not to be punished except for mercy. I contacted the lawyer, and in less than an hour he arrived. He went home and read the will, and if everything she said was true, he asked her, "Who can prove that what you are saying is true? Where are the witnesses?" "Wait a minute, I'll call the witness." He picked up his phone and made a quick call. It wasn't long before we heard a knock on the door. Rahaf jumped and opened the door and looked at us. "Here is the witness." Then she looked at him carefully, trying to deny her eyes, and shouted, "Kamal, what? Do I look that scary?" Rahaf fell to the ground and started crying and started sobbing and saying, "I thought you were dead. Thank God you are alive, otherwise you would be in the street now. Your wife and daughter came to throw you out of the house and called the lawyer to forge your property. You are a snake in a rabbit's clothing." My father started clapping, and she stood beside him. Then he looked at her and said, "You are divorced, Rahaf." Her mother and my mother shouted, and Rahaf started screaming while I hugged my father and wished we could stay like this longer, but there was something I had to do. I approached Rahaf and slapped her hard and said to her, "This is your reward. You tried to steal my father from me. You destroyed our family. My father thought that you really loved us and cared about him. But today, when he visited me in the hospital, he told me that he felt sorry for you. So I told him that if you felt sorry for them, you would have covered their expenses, not destroyed our family. He said that you loved him and that you could not leave him, but I wanted to prove otherwise. We talked for a long time and agreed on this plan. My father called the lawyer, then he came home to tell you that he bequeathed all the property to you. Everything was an act to discover the malice of your morals. Now you can go out and search about another place to stay." Rahaf was shocked by what I said and bent down to my feet, kissing them and begging me to forgive her, and started screaming, "Don't do this to me, Qatar al-Nada. Your kindness will not allow two women to go out at this night, but your innocence prevented me from forgiving her." My father approached my mother and apologized to her and asked her for a second chance. She refused at first, but she agreed. So he got married again, while Rahaf and her mother moved to the house where I lived with my mother. And my father started sending them a monthly amount to meet their needs. And we moved again to live in our warm home, a loving, close-knit family. My father always tries to compensate us for what we went through. Don't tell me that you are not happy for me. Well, I hope you tell me what you think of what Rahaf did to me, and I hope to see you in the next story, and of course with a new story and a new experience. Goodbye.